I've been predicting for like the past 2 years that mainline Persona games would eventually break free and become multiplats, but for some reason, this infuriated Sony stans who thought the idea of a third-party exclusive being ported over to another platform was unheard of, even though it's happened with just about every other franchise ever. However, as I'm sure you probably already know, Atlus finally revealed out of nowhere that Persona 4 Golden would now be available on PC, which might not be the Nintendo Switch, but if this enrages you, then I think you need to calm down for a minute, because now that the mainline series is officially multiplat, it'll only be a matter of time before we see it appear on non-PlayStation consoles once Catherine and possibly even Shin Megami Tensei 5 get their time in the spotlight on the Switch. But as awesome as Persona 4 Golden is, there's still quite a few fans of Persona 3 who feel like Atlus left them in the dust, but before you storm their headquarters in Hong Kong, Connecticut with pitchforks, make sure you sit back in your favorite YouTube viewing chair, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's least convincing Rob Schneider impersonator Cameron all one word, to tell you why Atlus snubbed Persona 3, and why it will eventually show up on other platforms. Alright, so in case you haven't noticed, the Persona series is more popular now than ever before thanks to the success of Persona 5, which I mainly attribute to the internet being much more prominent in the gaming community than it was for all the previous entries in the series. I mean, even though Persona's probably my favorite series right now, I'm not gonna lie and pretend that I had any idea I knew what it was until Persona 4 Golden was on the Vita, and even then, I still didn't play it until after the 5th game already came out. And to make matters worse, I actually owned the game for like 2 years and just never got around to it. Yeah, that's right, I'm one of those collectors, but I know you're probably thinking that if the series is so popular because of the 5th game, that it'd make way more sense to just make that a multiplat, and I do think it's only a matter of time before that happens as well, but I mean, the game just got an updated release on the PS4, and while I'm sure there's still plenty of people who wanted to play that game but didn't feel like buying a new console, the fact is that it's been a while since anyone's gotten a chance to play Persona 4 Golden, especially since not many people even had a Vita in the first place. So I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense that Atlus would want to give Persona 5 a little bit of a rest so that people don't get too tired of it, and besides, that game's a metric assload bigger than Persona 4, so porting it over to anything would be a lot more work, whereas Persona 4 Golden would be pretty much just copy and pasting. And that's not even taking all of Persona 5's button displays during battle and things of that nature into consideration either. But like I said earlier, if Persona 4 Golden's being ported over to PC, then you'd think it'd make sense to port 3 over as well, whether it be in a compilation or as a separate release like Capcom's been doing with the Resident Evil franchise. But the whole idea of the Persona franchise going multiplats to capitalize on the popularity of the 5th game, if it's too much of a pain in the ass to bring that to other platforms, then you'd naturally want to bring the next best thing if you're Atlus. And look, I know Persona 3's got some diehard fans out there who are bound to leave an upper decker or two in the comments for me saying this, but as a full-grown man who's played Personas 3 through 5, I've gotta say that in my opinion, 3's clearly the weak link in the bunch, and I feel confident in saying that most others would agree. And yeah, I know you might be wondering why no one's talking about Personas 1, 2, or 2, and I'm not saying that those games shouldn't be re-released at some point as well, but Persona 3's the game where the series took a drastic turn by adding life simulation elements as opposed to being a pure JRPG, so if the idea is to try to capitalize on the hype of the 5th game and trying to show new people what the series is currently all about, then there's no way around the fact that the first games to go multiplat should be 3 through 5. Well, I mean, Persona 1 was on Windows in Japan, sure, but even Sony doesn't remember that, so don't try and act like Persona 4 coming to PC is not a big deal. But going back to Persona 3, don't get me wrong, I appreciate that game for creating all the mechanics that we see in the modern Persona games, but there's just so much missing from it compared to its successors, and I suppose that if it's somebody's first Persona game, then they wouldn't notice what's missing, but with all this curiosity fans have towards the Persona series right now, I think it'd be in Atlus's best interest to give them the best game possible to increase the chances that they get hooked to the series like I did, because obviously that'd lead to them buying more games down the line. I mean, the order I played these games in was Persona 4 Golden, Persona 5, and then Persona 3, and I can tell you right now that if I started with Persona 3 in the beginning, I'm not exactly sure that I would have kept playing 4 and 5. Don't get me wrong, I definitely would have enjoyed it still, and I might have kept playing, but I'm just not sure that it would have made the same impact on me as 4 Golden did. So if Personas 3 and 4 were to both come to the PC at the same time, then I think there's a pretty good chance that more people would play 3 first, which I think would lead to way fewer people playing 4 afterwards than if the games came out in the opposite order. So even if I've got to clean upper deckers out in the comments for weeks, I'm gonna stick to my guns in saying that Persona 4 Golden's a much better first game for people to play than any version of Persona 3. And speaking of all the versions of Persona 3, that's kind of another issue with re-releasing it, because unlike Persona 4 Golden, which most would agree is clearly the best version of that game unless you're trying to sound cool or something, Persona 3 really has no definitive edition. Obviously, the base game on the PS2 was rendered obsolete after all the improvements that were made in FES, because Atlus likes to do that for whatever reason, but even then, there was still a lot left to be desired. However, a lot of the complaints that people had with the gameplay of the first 2 versions of Persona 3, like not being able to command your party members in battle, were fixed on Persona 3 Portable on the PSP, and on top of that, they even gave you the option to play the game as a female protagonist, which still hasn't been done ever since for some reason. However, the drawback to this version of the game is that the graphics were considerably watered down from the PS2 version, and sure, Atlus could definitely combine all the features into a remastered game, and I'm sure that they will, but given how much effort that'd take, it was probably just 1,000 times easier to port Persona 4 Golden over first, and it'd also probably make a much bigger impact than 3 as well. But before you call Atlus buttwagons for re-releasing old Persona titles separately when Capcom's bundling all their Resident Evil titles together, then just remember that Persona games take a lot more time to finish than any Resident Evil game. Not only that, but the PC version of Persona 4 Golden's still a lot cheaper than the Resident Evil re-releases were at first as well, so zip it, toots. All I know is that just because Persona 3 hasn't broken free just yet, doesn't mean that it won't at some point in the future, because after all, this is Atlus we're talking about here, and if you think for 1 second that they're not going to jump at the chance to re-release an old Persona game that people have already played before when the interest in it's at an all-time high, then think again. And if you're paranoid that these games are never coming to the Switch, or any other Nintendo console in general, then just keep in mind that Atlus is trying to give Catherine full body the spotlight on the Switch for a little while, and that it makes the most sense for Persona 4 Golden to come out on all the modern consoles at once, rather than for one platform to get the jump, which is why we're not even seeing it on PlayStation just yet either. And besides, the PC version of Persona 4 Golden's apparently got Switch Pro controller layouts in the game's code or whatever too, so, you know, there is that. But anyway, what do you think? Is Persona 3 ever gonna get a re-release? Do you think Persona games are ever gonna come to Nintendo consoles? Or do you think that the series should always stick to Sony no matter what, even though it'd be the last third-party exclusive to leave money on the table by not going multiplat? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody at some point. But let me tell you, if there's two people who'd make excellent protagonists in Persona games, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Jiznoof and Timothy Dyer. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail. Send pictures or videos of you rocking merch if you want to make cameos in my videos, and follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out whenever I play video games sometimes. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.